Good evening, lovely people. Welcome to Sophia's channel again. So for today's video, I'm going to talk about the rational institutionalism. I will divide this video into four main parts. The first part is about the book The Politics, Power, and Pathologies of International Organization by Barnard and Fenimore. Secondly, I'm going to talk about the pathologies of international organizations. Then I will talk about how do international organizations exercise power. And lastly, I will put a case study in order to support and recall the theory I've mentioned before. So this is a basic outline for today's video. This book has said that international organizations are powerful agents with autonomous preferences, and international organizations are not necessarily good, which means they can be inefficient. And they also follow a logic of bureaucracy, and the logic of bureaucracy is both good and bad news, and it's subject to dysfunction and even pathologies. Even if international organizations are established by an actor with a clear purpose, this does not necessitate they will follow this purpose, succeed, or even be faithful to the original state's interest. Because even if you are if you create something, it will inevitably take on its own preferences and desires. They will start acting autonomously and independently. And importantly, this is not a binary. International organization may act independently from, but constantly with, states' interest, interpreting mandates and implementing the policy in ways that are perhaps unanticipated but are agreeable to states. They will might act in areas where states are indifferent, which means that they create international organization with clear outline, what should do, how do, and clear procedures and purposes. The time goes on expand, which lead to an irrational tension, and don't mind what happened and unexpected. Furthermore, I'm going to talk about the pathologies of international organizations. International organizations equals to bureaucracy on whose rational legal nature and the rules and procedures, and they have political creates but with an appearance of depoliticization and relative autonomy, prone to these functions. And there are actually four pathologies. The first one is irrationality of rationalism, which means common rule book does not fit social goals. And bureaucratic universalism, which means one model fits all cases which are run. And normalism of deviance, which means which is pretty harmful, and the harmful expectation may become the rules in practice. And the last one is called the insulation, which means the specialization and professionalism, but it lack of the feedback loop. Speaking of the case study, the UN's peacekeeping came into its own with the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991. And the diminution of the ideological rivals that had dominated international politics since the Second World War. Early successes in Cambodia, Namibia, Mozambique, and El Salvador generated an overconfidence in the ability of UN soldiers to keep the peace. Each of those countries had an accord that former warring parties wanted to maintain. The UN learned the hard way in Angola, Rwanda, Bosnia, where the UN wants peace more than those in conflict. Then the illusion of the peacekeeping can perpetrate instability and cause lives. But even as peacekeeping has ballooned to become by far the most expensive of UN departments, the politics of the UN Security Council continues to hamstring action over some conflicts such as Syria and Darfur. Other missions drag on indefinitely, such as in the DRC and Haiti. There is friction between the UN and some governments over who have automated command over peacekeeping troops, which has resulted in conflicting orders with some disastrous consequences. Case of Democratic Republic of the Congo has rebels advanced on the eastern town of Goma. The Indian commander of part of the largest peacekeeping force in the world ignored orders from UN officials to defend the town and called the Indian Defense Ministry in New Delhi ask what he should do. He also told not to resist. The rebels seized Goma to the anger of Ban Ki-moon, who regarded it as a personal humiliation. According to a senior UN official, by the members of the wider UN mission in the DRC had come to look like bystander to mass killing, rape, and terror. Richard Gowan, until recently research director at the Center on International Cooperation, a think tank in New York, and works closely with the UN on peacekeeping, said Indian forces on Sierra Leone and the DRC will take in orders from the Defense Ministry in New Delhi, not the UN commanders on the ground. Thank you for listening. See you next time.